So let's get into this. So I've titled this A Quick History of Webnovels, and web fictions included. This is a prologue, part one of hopefully 3, maybe more, the development of books. So this actually was longer than I planned. I actually only expected this to be around 10-15 minutes, although this surprisingly might turn into an hour-long podcast type thing. If you guys are looking for more of the online stuff, I suggest you go to part 2 and part 3. There's a reason why I call this the prologue, because there's a lot of background information. So let's get into this. So, look at this. Recognize some of them? So on screen should be a photo of a couple of books, some of my favorite books that I really enjoy, most of which I've also read as well. So I'm just gonna really quickly introduce them to you guys. So on the left is the Bartimeaus Trilogy by Jonathan Stroud. The book is called The Amulet of Smockland, or Samarkand. A quick side note: my pronunciations aren't entirely accurate or done in the correct way. I generally pronounce them the way I read them in my head. So if you guys would prefer I pronounce it properly, then leave a comment or something. But anyway, The Amulet of Smockland is a great book. The Bartimeaus Trilogy, in my opinion, is a great series on mythology. It's one of my favorite mythology series of all time. Like, I know Rick Riordan, he's a great writer, and he's really got that market cornered from Greek, Norse, and Egyptian, as well I think his own called Beyonders. But I really, really like Jonathan Stroud's take on Middle Eastern mythology and on how he built the world of demons, jinns, goes into a little bit of Ptolemy and a lot of the Middle Eastern influences and cultures, Ring of Solomon and whatnot. And I thought the way he wrote the relationships and the world that he built is just quite amazing, and I really enjoyed that book. So yeah, if you're interested, do give that book a read. And then next is Gordon Corman's Twinkie Squad. Gordon Corman is a hilarious comedy writer. He's more recently known for his series on Swindle, but he also wrote the series Something's Happening at McDonald Hall and other assorted books. My favorite independent or standalone book is this one on screen, which is the Twinkie Squad. Twinkie Squad is a hilarious book. I really enjoyed it. I'm really trying not to give any spoilers, so I'm basically like going into the backgrounds of the authors themselves. But it's a hilarious book. I still read it to this day, and it makes me laugh out loud. I could definitely get into a lot of the summaries of it, but I fear spoiling the experience of reading such a book. And then next up on the list is, in my opinion, one of the literary giants and one of the greats, one of the great writers. It's Andrew Clements. Andrew Clements is an amazing children's author. If you haven't read Andrew Clements, because since Andrew Clements is maybe not necessarily from a bygone era, but his books and his writing is just from an era that's not really around anymore for books, because now you have video games. But Andrew Clements is definitely one of my favorite authors. He's written books like Frindle, School Story, The Landry News. He's written some of the best books I just remember reading as a kid, and whenever he published a book, I would read it. Recently, he's gone in a different direction than I expected, but he's historically he has a very strong background in writing kids books, and I just really love his writing. And my favorite of his is The Last Holiday Concert. It's a great book. If you haven't read it, you should give it a read. It's a good story. And then lastly, on the very right, is one of the most inspirational and one of my favorite books. Not necessarily from a business or economic interests, which is generally the stuff I read, because I enjoy engaging financial plots. But from a dreamer's perspective, I really like the youthfulness and the joie de vivre of childhood, like the frivolousness. Maybe not frivolous is the right word, but there's just a sense of freedom in his writing. It's Frank Cottrell Boyce's Cosmic. And my lord, Cosmic is just a great book. It's nothing like fantastical or as amazing. It doesn't go into like a wondrous world. There's a little bit of fiction, but there's something in the way he writes that just really catches my eye as both a child and as a dreamer. Even his other books, I think the other one he's famous for is Millions, is quite good, but I felt like he really struck it out of the park with Cosmic. I mean, it's nothing like so amazing or special like a lot of the other children's books. Like some of the puzzle books that have recently gone into publishing would be the Gollywhopper games, which is the historical one, and then you have Lemoncellow's Library, and that kind of leads into the mystery genre of the Mysterious Benedict Society. But I felt like Cosmic just has this special flavor to it I've never really seen anywhere else, and it's one of my all-time favorites. So back to the history of books real quickly. So books are really just a medium and a format of stories we write in the modern day, right? And currently, in my opinion, I've seen them fallen slightly out of favor. Not necessarily in publishing or in sales or whatnot, but I'll get into that a little later. But throughout history, this type of book or story format, as we call it, has definitely seen many different forms. So going back to ancient history, some of the most popular books that have survived is going to be religious texts, like the Quran from the Middle East and the Islamic world. On screen are also the Bible, the King James versions, which is one of the most widespread ones with containing both the Old and New Testament. Even more of the religious texts that are also widely distributed would also be Buddhist scriptures and teachings, and a lot of philosophical and educational writing on the topic. But I really want to explore the mediums and the ways books have transitioned, and the way that they have gone through that process is just very fascinating, and I would like to take everyone through that. So those are some of the more famous examples. I'll go into some of the more older ones I know, and some of the lesser known ones I thought that you guys might enjoy. We're now going to be going into a brief history of books from the time period of between 2500 BC or BCE and 1500 AD. So I know the scientific terms behind it, which is BC stands for before Common Era, or if I'm not mistaken, before Christ. And AD stands for after death, or I think the Latin term for AD is Anno Domini, or birth of Jesus Christ. I always thought it was after death. Also referred to as CE or just Common Era. Those are just the rough time periods. Just a quick disclaimer, the way when we're presenting these, as with most things, are generally not going to be in chronological order, but I do display rough dates pulled from questionable sources, or at least academically questionable sources like Wikipedia. But in my opinion, I feel that they're quite solid and credible. Okay, so first off,